Namaskar. A warm welcome to World News and Indian Perspective on All India Radio. This is Renu Kataria and with me is Abhineet Shukla bringing glimpses of the major developments of the day from across the globe. Over the next half an hour, we shall bring you the latest from the world of politics, economy, sports, entertainment and more. The headlines. Rishi Sunak to be the next British Prime Minister. Congratulating Sunak, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi says he looks forward to working closely together on global issues and implementing Roadmap 2030. Festival of Lights, Diwali being celebrated in India and abroad. Prime Minister Narendra Modi celebrates Diwali with the armed forces in Kargil, says India has risen from every possible challenge. External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar says India remains committed to the purposes and principles of the United Nations. India to participate in Dhaka International Forum on Peace and Security. Romania's Defence Minister Vasile Dinku resigns over his controversial statement on Ukraine, and in ICC Men's T20 World Cup, Bangladesh beat the Netherlands by 9 runs. Former British Finance Minister Rishi Sunak will be Britain's next Prime Minister after winning the Conservative Party leadership contest. This comes after Penny Mordaunt dropped out of the Tory leadership race. Mordaunt said Sunak has her full support. There were loud cheers and bangs on the tables from Conservative members of Parliament as Sir Graham Brady announced they only received one nomination for the new leader of the party. He therefore declared Rishi Sunak to be the next party leader. Sunak will become the UK's first British Asian Prime Minister. 42-year-old Sunak becomes Britain's third Prime Minister in less than 2 months as Boris Johnson and Liz Truss have resigned from their posts. We have a profile of the new British Prime Minister.
Born in Southampton on the 12th of May 1980 to parents of Indian descent who migrated to Britain from East Africa in the 1960s, Rishi Sunak has served as the Chancellor of the Exchequer from 2020 to 2022. He previously served as Chief Secretary to the Treasury from 2019 to 2020. A member of the Conservative Party, Sunak has been the Member of Parliament for Richmond since 2015. He supported Brexit in the 2016 referendum on EU membership. Sunak studied at Lincoln College, Oxford. He got an MBA from Stanford University in California as a Fulbright scholar. Sunak is one of the wealthiest politicians in Westminster, with a combined fortune of £730 million with the assets of his wife Akshata Murthy. As Chancellor, Sunak was prominent in the government's financial response to the COVID-19 pandemic and its economic impact, including the coronavirus job retention and Eat Out to Help Out schemes. He resigned as the Chancellor on the 5th of July 2022, citing his economic policy differences with Johnson in his resignation letter. On the 8th of July this year, he stood in the Conservative Party leadership election to replace Johnson. He in turn lost the Conservative leadership race to Liz Truss. Desk Report. World News. All India Radio, New Delhi.
Meanwhile, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi has congratulated Rishi Sunak on being appointed as new Prime Minister of United Kingdom. In a tweet, Mr. Modi said he looks forward to working closely together on global issues and implementing Roadmap 2030. He also extended special Diwali wishes to the living bridge of UK Indians as India and UK transform historic ties into a modern partnership. Festival of Lights, Diwali, is being celebrated across India and around the world on Monday. The festival, which symbolizes the victory of good over evil, is celebrated by lighting up houses, temples and other public places. People also worship the goddess of wealth, Lakshmi, on the occasion. In Uttar Pradesh, Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath celebrated Diwali with saints in Ayodhya and the tribal community in Gorakhpur. After a grand Deepotsav in Ayodhya, Uttar Pradesh Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath performed puja in Sri Ram Lalla Virajman and Hanuman Gari Mandir in Ayodhya. Hailing the celebration of Deepotsava historic, the Chief Minister said, Ayodhya's Deepotsav is a reflection of the resolve and emotions of the countless people. Later in the day, following years-long tradition, Yogi Adityanath celebrated Diwali with the people of tribal Vantangya community in Gorakhpur. In the United States, Diwali will be a holiday for the New York City public schools starting next year. Mayor of New York, Eric Adams, had earlier in the week announced the decision. President Draupadi Murmu, Vice President Jagdeep Dhankar and Prime Minister Narendra Modi have greeted the nation on the occasion of Diwali. Jammu and Kashmir Lieutenant Governor Manoj Sinha has greeted the people on the occasion.
India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi has emphasized the vision of New India as not just a country but a mixture of sacrifice, love, compassion, talent, courage, valor and wisdom. The Prime Minister was interacting with the members of the armed forces in Kargil on Monday. He said, civilizations emerged and perished in world history, but India has risen from every possible challenge. Mr. Modi said, a nation becomes immortal when the brave soldiers of that country have immense faith in it.
पराक्रम और शौर्य से सिंचित कारगिल की इस मिट्टी को नमन करने का भाव मुझे बार बार अपने वीर बेटे बेटियों के बीच खींच लाता। मेरे लिए तो वर्षों वर्ष से मेरा परिवार आप ही सब है। मेरी दीपावली की मिठास आपके बीच बढ़ जाती। मेरी दीपावली का प्रकाश आपके बीच है और अगली दिवाली तक मेरा पथ प्रशस्त करता है.
Mr. Modi highlighted that there has not been a single war with Pakistan where Kargil has not hoisted the flag of victory. Mr. Modi said, today the whole nation is looking forward to the growing strength and the power of India.
पाकिस्तान के साथ एक भी लड़ाई ऐसी नहीं हुई है जहां कारगिल ने विजय ध्वज न फहराया हो. आज के वैश्विक परिदृश्य में प्रकाश का ये पर्व पूरे विश्व के लिए शांति का पथ प्रदर्शन करे, ये भारत की कामना है. दिवाली का अर्थ है आतंक के अंत के साथ उत्सव. आतंक के अंत का उत्सव यही कारगिल ने भी किया था. कारगिल में हमारी सेना ने आतंक के फन को कुचला था और देश में जीत की ऐसी दिवाली मनी थी कि लोग आज भी याद करते हैं.
The Prime Minister said that the adoption of the new ensign of the Navy is another step away from imperialism. He said the naval ensign now is a symbol of Chhatrapati Shivaji's bravery. Mr. Modi said the BrahMos supersonic missiles to Tejas fighter jets are a few examples of India's new power.
आज ब्रह्मोस सुपरसोनिक मिसाइल से लेकर प्रचंड लाइट कॉम्बैट हेलीकॉप्टर और तेजस फाइटर जेट तक ये रक्षा साजो सामान भारत की शक्ति का पर्याय बन रहे हैं. आज भारत के पास विशाल समंदर में विप्लवी विक्रांत है. युद्ध गहराइयों में हुआ तो अरी का अंत अरिहंत है. भारत के पास पृथ्वी है, आकाश है. अगर विनाश का तांडव है तो शिव का त्रिशूल है, पिनाका है. कितना भी बड़ा कुरुक्षेत्र होगा, लक्ष्य भारत का अर्जुन भेदेगा.
The Prime Minister complimented the armed forces for taking the pledge of being Atmanirbhar. He said, over the last 8 years, the government worked with a focus on implementing reforms within the armed forces.
कुशासन ने लंबे समय तक देश के सामर्थ्य को सीमित रखा, हमारे विकास के रास्ते में रोड़े अटकाए. आज सबका साथ, सबका विकास, सबका विश्वास और सबका प्रयास के मंत्र के साथ हम उन सभी पुरानी कमियों को तेजी से दूर कर रहे हैं.
Indian External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar has said that New Delhi will always stand with the Global South and seek to strengthen the United Nations' effectiveness. On the occasion of United Nations Day, Dr. Jaishankar said, India's ongoing tenure as a member of the UNSC has reflected our principal approach of promoting dialogue and diplomacy to meet contemporary challenges. He said, India's focus on reformed multilateralism, rule of law and a fair and equitable international system is aimed at ensuring the UN's continued relevance. The External Affairs Minister said, as United Nations founding member, India remains committed to its purposes and principles. He said, India's contributions to implementing the goals of the Charter are a reflection of this commitment.
Indian Minister of State for External Affairs V. Muralidharan has reached Dhaka today on a 2-day visit to Senegal. He will participate in the 8th edition of the Dhaka International Forum on Peace and Security. This is the first time that India is participating in the forum at a ministerial level. The Dhaka International Forum has become a key event for decision makers involved in Africa. The participation of Mr. Muralidharan in the Dhaka Forum underscores the importance that India attaches to the peace, security and developmental issues concerning Africa. The visit is also in line with India's policy to intensify and deepen its engagement with Africa. In a tweet, Mr. Muralidharan said he is looking forward to his engagements with the Senegal leadership and the Indian community. In today's Hotspot section, we bring you a news commentary on the G20 Summit 2023 in India. It has been written by Dr. Atul Kumar Tiwari, Foreign Affairs Editor.
India is gearing up for the G20 presidency from the 1st of December 2022. The G20, or Group of 20, is an intergovernmental forum of the world's major developed and developing economies. It comprises of 19 countries: Argentina, Australia, Brazil, Canada, China, France, Germany, India, Indonesia, Italy, Japan, Republic of Korea, Mexico, Russia, Saudi Arabia, South Africa, Turkey, UK and USA, and the European Union (EU). Collectively, the G20 accounts for 85% of the global GDP, 75% of the international trade, and 2/3 of the world's population, making it the premier forum for international economic cooperation. India is currently part of the G20 Troika, current, previous and incoming G20 presidencies comprising Indonesia, Italy and India. During her presidency, India, Indonesia and Brazil would form the Troika. This would be the first time when the Troika would consist of 3 developing countries and emerging economies, providing them a greater voice. On the 1st of December 2021, India joined the G20 Troika of Indonesia, Italy and India, the current, previous and incoming G20 presidencies respectively. As a Troika member, India is working closely with Indonesia and Italy to ensure consistency and further strengthening the G20 agenda. India will assume the G20 presidency on the 1st of December 2022 from Indonesia and will convene the G20 Leaders Summit for the first time in India in 2023. Every rotating G20 presidency also serves as the G20 Secretariat for the year. Accordingly, the Union Cabinet on the 15th of February 2022 approved the setting up of a G20 Secretariat manned by officers and staff from the Ministry of External Affairs, the Ministry of Finance and other concerned ministries and departments dealing with the G20 subjects. It is responsible for arrangements and implementation of decisions needed for steering India's forthcoming G20 presidency under the overall guidance and direction of the Prime Minister and concerned ministers. The G20 Secretariat is handling work relating to substantive content of G20 discussions as well as logistics including preparation of meetings and venues, technical, media and security aspects, and facilitating arrangements for G20 delegates. As the G20 President, India will set the agenda for the year, identify the themes and focus areas, conduct discussions and work out outcome documents. The G20 Secretariat will be responsible for smooth transition from the previous presidency, preparations and conduct of all G20 meetings during the year, consultation and coordination with stakeholders, and finally handing over to the next presidency. India will assume the presidency of the G20 for 1 year from the 1st of December 2022 to the 30th of November 2023. Under its presidency, India is expected to host over 200 G20 meetings across the country, beginning December 2022. The G20 Leaders Summit at the level of heads of states or government is scheduled to be held on the 9th and 10th of September 2023 in New Delhi. The G20 currently comprises of various tracks. One of the most important tracks is the finance track with 8 work streams: global macroeconomic policies, infrastructure financing, international financial architecture, sustainable finance, financial inclusion, health finance, international taxation and financial sector reforms. The Sherpa track comprises of 12 work streams anti-corruption, agriculture, culture, development, digital economy, employment, environment and climate, education, energy transition, health, trade and investment, and tourism. 10 engagement groups of private sector or civil society or independent bodies, Business 20, Civil 20, Labour 20, Parliament 20, Science 20, Supreme Audit Institutions 20, Think 20, Urban 20, Women 20, and Youth 20. In addition to G20 members, there has been a tradition of the G20 presidency inviting some guest countries and international organizations, IOs, to its G20 meetings and summit. Accordingly, in addition to regular international organizations, UN, IMF, World Bank, WHO, WTO, ILO, FSB and OECD, and the chairs of regional organizations, AU, AUDA, NEPAD and ASEAN, India as G20 presidency will be inviting Bangladesh, Egypt, Mauritius, Netherlands, Nigeria, Oman, Singapore, Spain and UAE as guest countries, as well as the ISA, International Solar Alliance, CDRI, Coalition for Disaster Resilient Infrastructure, and ADB, Asian Development Bank as guest IOs. Whilst India's G20 priorities are in the process of being firmed up, ongoing conversations revolve around inclusive, equitable and sustainable growth. Life, lifestyle for environment, women's empowerment, digital public infrastructure and tech-enabled development in areas ranging from health, agriculture and education to commerce, skill mapping, culture and tourism. Climate financing, circular economy, global food security, energy security, green hydrogen, disaster risk reduction and resilience, developmental cooperation, fight against economic crime and multilateral reforms.
This is All India Radio giving you the world news. For quick news updates round the clock, follow us on Twitter at AIR News Alerts.
Romania's Defence Minister Vasile Dinku on Monday resigned after sparking controversy by suggesting that Ukraine may have to cede territory to Russia as part of potential talks aimed at ending the conflict. In a statement, Mr. Dinku said, "It is impossible to cooperate with the Romanian President, the Army's Commander-in-Chief." Mr. Dinku's resignation comes a week after suggesting that Ukraine's only chance for peace would be in negotiating with Russia, in contrast to Romania's official stance. President Klaus Iohannis and leaders of the ruling government coalition strongly criticized Mr. Dinku's statement. He later said that his comments were taken out of context. President Iohannis said Ukrainians were paying with blood in the war and only they could decide what and when to negotiate, a position held by Romania and the European Union. Romania, a European Union and NATO member that borders war-torn Ukraine, has become an increasingly important Western ally since Russia's military action in Ukraine earlier this year. Western countries on Monday accused Russia of plotting to use a threat of a bomb laced with nuclear material as a pretext for escalation in Ukraine. In a joint statement, the foreign ministers of France, Britain and the United States said they have all rejected the allegations and reaffirmed their support for Ukraine against Russia. Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu phoned Western counterparts yesterday to tell them Moscow suspected Kyiv of planning to use a dirty bomb. Responding to this, Western countries said, "We all reject Russian transparently false allegations that Ukraine is preparing to use a dirty bomb on its own territory." President Cyril Ramaphosa has said that South Africa will overhaul its anti-corruption strategy and ensure the independence of prosecutors. He was responding to recommendations from a state inquiry into alleged corruption under his predecessor. A judicial commission of inquiry was established to examine allegations of high-level graft during former President Jacob Zuma's 9 years in power from 2009 to 2018. Ramaphosa said in a live television broadcast that the people of South Africa are tired of corruption and want it to end. He said as a country, they are emerging from a dark and difficult period. The inquiry found Zuma had allowed businessmen close to him to plunder state resources and influence policy, commonly known as state capture in South Africa. The accused have denied any wrongdoing and have left the country but face extradition proceedings in Dubai. Zuma denies wrongdoing and at one stage refused to cooperate with the inquiry, leading to his imprisonment in July 2021 for contempt of court.
An Ethiopian government delegation and rival Tigray forces are set to meet in South Africa for the first formal peace talks since war broke out 2 years ago. The African Union is mediating talks after a surge in fighting in the northern Tigray region in recent weeks. In a statement, a spokesman for the rebel authorities in Tigray has announced the delegation's arrival in South Africa. Ethiopia's government has also said that it will participate in the negotiations as diplomatic pressure mounts for an end to a war. The government of Ethiopia views that the talks as an opportunity to peacefully resolve the conflict and consolidate the improvement of the situation on the ground, it added. Recently, Ethiopian forces and their allies made significant battlefield gains in Tigray region, where they have captured several large towns in the past week. Both sides had committed to the talks in South Africa earlier this month. However, they are delayed for logistical reasons. The conflict has killed thousands, displaced millions and left hundreds of thousands on the brink of famine.
North and South Korea exchanged warning shots on Monday along their disputed western sea boundary. South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff said in a statement that a North Korean merchant ship violated the sea boundary, which is known as the Northern Limit Line. According to a state media from Pyongyang, the North's military fired 10 rocket artillery rounds after a South Korean Navy ship violated the sea border and fired warning shots. Calling the North's move a violation of a 2018 bilateral military pact banning hostile acts in the border areas, the South Korean army urged it to cease consistent provocations and accusations. A damaged Korean airplane remained stuck in the grass at a central Philippine airport Monday after it overshot a runway in rainy weather the night before. No injuries were reported among the 162 passengers and 11 crew members who escaped from the aircraft using emergency slides. The Civil Aviation Authority of the Philippines said in a statement that all passengers are safe and being attended by ground personnel. Dozens of flights have been cancelled and Mactan Cebu International Airport, one of the country's busiest, remained closed due to the stalled aircraft at the end of its lone usable runway. The terrifying close call prompted a public apology through a statement that they always prioritize safety in all of their operations. It was also said that the airlines truly regrets the stress and inconvenience brought to the passengers. Philippine officials said the plane's remaining fuel would be siphoned off before efforts begin to remove the aircraft at the runway's end.
Cyclonic storm Sitrang moved north-northeastwards and now lies centered north of the Bay of Bengal. Indian Met Department said it is very likely to continue to move north-northeastwards and intensify into a severe cyclonic storm. It is likely to cross Bangladesh coast between Tinkona Island and Sandwip close to Barisul in the wee hours next day. Fishermen have been advised not to venture into sea along and off Odisha, West Bengal and Bangladesh coast Monday and on Tuesday. In coastal Bangladesh, the airports at Chattogram, Cox's Bazar and Barisul have been shut down for 21 hours starting 3 p.m. Monday till 12 noon Tuesday. Our Dhaka correspondent reports local administration in the coastal districts has prepared cyclone shelters, set up medical teams and have volunteers ready to deal with the emerging situation. India and a few other places in the world will witness a partial solar eclipse on Tuesday. Most parts of India will also be able to witness the event except some parts of the northeast region. The partial solar eclipse will be visible from 4:29 p.m. and will end with sunset at 5:42 p.m. Indian time. The cities that will witness the eclipse for longer than an hour include Dwarka, New Delhi, Mumbai, Ahmedabad, Bhopal, Ludhiana, Agra and Chandigarh.
The Bombay Stock Exchange BSE and the National Stock Exchange on Monday conducted Muhurat trading, a 1-hour special session marking the beginning of Samvat 2079. The Sensex at both the exchanges gained around 1%. The BSE closed at 59,832 and the Nifty settled at 17,731 level. The trading took place across various segments like equity, commodity derivatives, currency derivatives, equity futures and options, and securities lending and borrowing. In the ICC Men's T20 World Cup, Bangladesh defeated the Netherlands by 9 runs at the same venue. Putting to bat first, Bangladesh set a target of 145 runs for the loss of 8 wickets in the stipulated 20 overs. On the other hand, the Netherlands managed to score 135 runs. Later, the match between South Africa and Zimbabwe was washed out at Blundstone Arena Stadium, Australia on Monday. Earlier, the match was reduced to 9 overs per side after a rain delay of more than 2 hours. Batting first, Zimbabwe scored 79 runs for the loss of 5 wickets in 9 overs. Chasing the target, South Africa made 51 runs for no loss in just 3 overs. With the result, both the teams shared a point each.
Now let us take a look at the major developments around the world as reported in the foreign press. The Times reports that Rishi Sunak vows to lead with integrity and humility. The Financial Times notes that gilts and sterling rally as Rishi Sunak poised to become Prime Minister. The Wall Street Journal reports that UK bonds rally as Rishi Sunak wins race to become next Prime Minister. The Washington Post observes that Rishi Sunak is richer than the royals. The Guardian writes that Ukraine war heading for uncontrolled escalation, says Russia. Japan Times informs that Japan Economic Revitalization Minister Daishiro Yamagiwa has resigned over his links to the controversial Unification Church in another blow to the cabinet of Prime Minister Fumio Kishida. And South China Morning Post writes that stock markets crashed in Hong Kong, Shanghai and Shenzhen after a raft of bad news after China's leadership reshuffle.
And moving on to some more sports news. In badminton, Commonwealth Games champion Lakshya Sen will face teammate Kidambi Shrikant in the men's singles opening round match of the French Open badminton tournament tomorrow in Paris, France. Sen was the best Indian on show at the recently concluded Denmark Open, but he had lost to Japan's lowly ranked Kodai Narakoa in the quarter-finals. In the earlier matchup, Shrikant had defeated Sen in a tightly fought contest en route to winning a historic silver at the 2021 World Championships.
A quick look at the headlines once again. Rishi Sunak to be the next British Prime Minister. Congratulating Sunak, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi says he looks forward to working closely together on global issues and implementing Roadmap 2030. Festival of Light, Diwali being celebrated in India and abroad. Prime Minister Narendra Modi celebrates Diwali with the armed forces in Kargil, says India has risen from every possible challenge. External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar says India remains committed to the purposes and principles of the United Nations. India to participate in Dhaka International Forum on Peace and Security. Romania's Defence Minister Vasile Dinku resigns over his controversial statement on Ukraine. And in ICC Men's T20 World Cup, Bangladesh beat the Netherlands by 9 runs. And now, before we end, let us listen to Mahatma Gandhi's favourite bhajan, Vaishnav Jan, by artist from Spain. And with that, we end this bulletin. We'll be back at the same time tomorrow with the next edition of World News.